You see strangers every day, on the road, in stores, walking past your house. Most of them disappear from your mind within seconds. But sometimes, one stranger doesn't. Sometimes they notice you first, and that's when everything changes. I still flinch when strangers make eye contact with me. It's been 3 years, but I can't shake it. I'll be at the grocery store, the post office, anywhere really, and someone will look at me for just a second too long, and my entire body locks up. My therapist says it's hypervigilance, a trauma response. She's probably right, but knowing what it is doesn't make it stop. Let me back up. 3 years ago, I was 24, living in Bakersfield, California, working the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner called Mel's off Highway 99. It wasn't glamorous. The floors were sticky, the coffee was burnt, and the regulars were either truckers or insomniacs with nowhere else to go. But it paid rent and I didn't mind the quiet. Most nights, it was just me, one cook named Raphael, and the hum of the fluorescent lights. January in Bakersfield isn't the kind of cold that gets you sympathy. It's not snow and ice. It's just this damp, biting chill that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel gray. That night, the night everything changed, it was especially dead. We'd had maybe 5 customers all evening. By 2 a.m., the place was empty. I was wiping down tables, half asleep on my feet, when I heard the door chime. I looked up. A man walked in. He was average height, maybe 5 feet 10 inches, clean-shaven, with dark hair combed neatly to the side. He wore a brown leather jacket that looked expensive, the kind you don't see on truckers. His jeans were dark, his boots clean. He looked normal, unremarkably normal. That should have been my first warning. He sat in my section, booth 3 by the window, and I grabbed a menu and walked over. I smiled. I always smiled. It was part of the job. "Coffee?" I asked. He looked up at me, and for a split second, I felt something I couldn't name. His eyes were dark, almost black in the diner's lighting, and they didn't blink as much as they should have. But he smiled, warm, polite, and nodded. "Please, black." I brought him the coffee. My hands were steady. I wasn't scared yet. When I set the cup down, he looked up at me again and said, "Thanks, Sarah." I froze. My name tag had fallen off hours earlier. I'd clipped it to my apron that morning, but the pin broke around 10 p.m., and I'd shoved it in my pocket. I wasn't wearing it. I was sure of that. I forced a laugh. "How'd you know my name?" He tilted his head slightly, still smiling. "Didn't I hear someone say it earlier? Maybe. Maybe Raphael had called me from the kitchen. Maybe another customer had said it in passing." I told myself that made sense. I told myself I was being paranoid. I nodded. "Yeah, probably." I started to walk away, but then he spoke again. "You take Maple Street home, don't you?" My stomach dropped. I turned back slowly. "What?" He was stirring his coffee, not looking at me. Casual, like he'd just asked about the weather. "Maple Street," he repeated, glancing up. "That's your route home, right? After your shift." My mouth went dry. Maple Street was my street. I lived in a small apartment complex 3 blocks off Maple. I drove down it every single morning when I left work. I never told anyone that. I forced myself to stay calm. I shook my head. "No, you must be thinking of someone else." He didn't respond. He just took a sip of his coffee and smiled again. That same warm, polite smile. But his eyes stayed on me a second too long. I walked straight to the kitchen. Raphael was flipping eggs on the grill, humming to himself. I grabbed his arm. "Raph, that guy in booth 3. Have you ever seen him before?" He looked through the window. "The guy in the jacket?" "Nah." "Why?" He knew my name, and he knew where I live. Raphael frowned. "You wearing your name tag?" "No. It fell off hours ago." He wiped his hands on his apron. "You want me to say something?" "No. Just, can you watch him?" "I'm calling Marco." Marco was the night manager. He didn't work the floor, but he monitored the cameras from the back office. I called him on the kitchen phone, my hands shaking now, and explained what happened. "Stay in the kitchen," Marco said. "I'll check the footage." I stood there, peeking through the window. The man hadn't moved. He was just sitting there, staring at the door I'd walked through, not drinking his coffee, not looking at his phone, just staring. 5 minutes later, Marco came out. He looked uneasy. "I checked the last 2 hours of footage," he said quietly. He didn't talk to anyone. No one said your name. And Sarah, he walked straight to your section. Didn't hesitate. Like he knew you'd be working. A chill ran through me. "What do we do?" I whispered. "Nothing legally. He hasn't threatened you. But I'm gonna keep watching. You stay back here till he leaves." I nodded. 10 minutes later, the man stood up. He left a $20 bill on the table, way more than the coffee cost, and walked out without a word. Marco watched him on the camera. He's getting into a car. Gray sedan. No plates I can see from this angle. I didn't go back out to the floor. I stayed in the kitchen until my shift ended at 6 a.m. And when I finally walked out to my car in the cold, gray dawn, I was exhausted, paranoid, but also trying to convince myself I'd overreacted. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. My heart started pounding before I even touched it. I looked around the parking lot. Empty. Just my car and Raphael's truck. I pulled the paper out with shaking hands and unfolded it. The handwriting was neat, careful. It said, "I'll see you tomorrow, Sarah." I dropped it. I got in my car, locked the doors, and sat there, shaking, staring at that piece of paper on the ground. I didn't cry. I think I was too scared to cry. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. I called the police from the parking lot. They sent an officer an hour later. He took the note, took my statement, but he was honest with me. Without a name, a plate, or a direct threat, there's not much we can do. He didn't touch you. He didn't follow you. Technically, he just left a note. "He knows where I live," I said. "Did he say that explicitly?" "He said the name of my street." The officer nodded. "I'll file a report. Keep your doors locked. If you see him again, call immediately." That was it. I didn't go home. I went to my friend Jenna's apartment and slept on her couch. I called Mel's that afternoon and quit over the phone. Marco understood. He said he'd mail my last check. I didn't work for 2 months. I was too afraid to leave Jenna's apartment most days. I kept seeing him, in grocery stores, on street corners, in cars parked too close. It was never really him, but my brain didn't care. I moved out of Bakersfield that spring. I went to Fresno, got a job at a call center where I didn't have to see anyone. I changed my route, my routine, my entire life. But here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. A year later, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't know. No profile picture, no mutual friends. The message just said, "I'm glad you're doing better, Sarah." I deleted my account that day. I still don't know how he knew my name. I don't know how he knew my street. I don't know if he followed me before that night or if he's still watching now. But sometimes, late at night when I'm alone in my apartment, I think about that note. "I'll see you tomorrow, Sarah." And I wonder if he's still waiting to keep that promise. I don't stop at rest stops anymore. Not at night. Not alone. Not ever. People think I'm being paranoid when I say I'll hold it for 3 hours straight or piss in a bottle on the side of the highway before I pull into one of those places. But they weren't there. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what I felt. It's been 2 years, and I still see her face when I close my eyes. Let me back up. 2 years ago, I was 28, freshly single, and driving cross-country from North Carolina to Portland, Oregon. My ex and I had just ended a 4-year relationship. Messy, painful, the kind where you have to leave the state just to feel like you can breathe again. I packed everything I owned into my Honda Civic, said goodbye to no one, and hit the road. By the time I reached Tennessee, I'd been driving for almost 12 hours straight. It was late October, and the nights were getting cold. The kind of cold that seeps through the car vents no matter how high you crank the heat. I was on I-40, somewhere between Nashville and Memphis, and it was around 11 p.m. The highway was empty. Just me, the hum of my engine, and the endless stretch of dark road cutting through nowhere. I had to pee. I'd been holding it for over an hour, telling myself I'd wait until I hit a gas station or a McDonald's, somewhere with lights and people. But my bladder had other plans. I was starting to hurt, that deep, urgent ache that makes you squirm in your seat. That's when I saw the sign. Rest area 1 mile. I hesitated. Rest stops always creeped me out, especially the ones in the middle of nowhere. But I didn't have a choice. I told myself it'd be fine. In and out. 5 minutes, tops. I took the exit. The rest stop was small. Just a single building with bathrooms, vending machines, and a couple of picnic tables outside. The parking lot was barely lit, just a few tall yellow lights buzzing in the cold air. There was only one other car there. A silver sedan with tinted windows, parked near the far end of the lot. I pulled in close to the building, grabbed my keys, and got out. The air hit me immediately. Cold, damp. It smelled like wet asphalt and old leaves. I could hear the highway in the distance, but otherwise, it was silent. Too silent. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own breathing. I walked quickly to the entrance, glancing at the silver sedan as I passed. The windows were too dark to see inside, but I got the feeling someone was in there, watching. I shook it off. I was tired, paranoid, emotional. Inside, the rest stop was worse than I expected. The lights flickered, buzzing like trapped flies. The tile floor was cracked and stained, and there was this smell, like mildew and something metallic I couldn't place. I went straight to the women's restroom, used it as fast as I could, and washed my hands in the sink. The water was freezing. The mirror was foggy, streaked with grime. When I walked back out into the main area, I saw her. She was standing by the vending machines, just standing there. At first, I thought she was looking at the snack options, trying to decide what to get. But then I realized she wasn't looking at anything. She was staring at the wall, and she was smiling. Not a normal smile, not a polite, passing stranger smile. A wide, unblinking smile, like someone had told her to smile for a photo and forgot to tell her to stop. Her hair was wet, soaked actually. It clung to her face and neck in dark, stringy clumps. But it wasn't raining. It hadn't rained all day. She was maybe in her 40s, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie. Average height, pale skin. But it was the smile that made my stomach twist. I tried to ignore her. I nodded, just a quick, polite acknowledgement, and walked past her toward the door. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, squeaking on the tile. She was following me. I didn't look back. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she was just leaving too. Maybe it was a coincidence. But the footsteps matched my pace. Every time I sped up, so did she. My heart started pounding. I pushed through the door and walked quickly to my car, fumbling with my keys. My hands were shaking. I unlocked the door, slid inside, and locked it immediately. I sat there for a second, gripping the steering wheel, trying to catch my breath. Then I looked in the rearview mirror. She was standing directly behind my car. Just standing there, smiling. Her head tilted to the side like a dog that didn't understand what it was looking at. Her eyes were locked on mine in the mirror. I felt my blood turn to ice. I didn't think. I just reacted. I started the engine, threw the car into reverse, and hit the gas. I swerved around her, tires screeching, and peeled out of the parking lot. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see her running after me, but she was just standing there in the middle of the lot, watching me disappear. I got back on I-40, my heart hammering in my chest. I told myself it was over. I told myself she was just some weirdo, high or mentally ill, and I'd never see her again. Then, about a mile down the road, I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. Car was coming up fast behind me. I squinted. It was hard to tell in the dark, but the shape looked familiar. Silver sedan, tinted windows. My stomach dropped. No. I pressed the gas, speeding up to 80. The car stayed behind me, matching my speed. I moved into the left lane. So did the car. I moved back to the right. So did the car. I was breathing fast now, my chest tight. I thought about calling 911, but my phone was in my bag in the back seat. and I didn't want to take my eyes off the road. For 20 minutes, she followed me. 20 minutes of pure, suffocating terror. I kept thinking she was going to run me off the road, or pull up beside me, or... God, I didn't even know. I just knew I couldn't let her catch me. Finally, I saw a sign for a truck stop, one of those big, well-lit travel centers with gas pumps and a 24-hour store. I took the exit without signaling, hoping she wouldn't follow. She didn't. I watched in the mirror as the silver sedan kept going, disappearing down the highway. I pulled into the truck stop and parked under the brightest light I could find. There were people around, truckers, families, a guy filling up his RV. I sat there, shaking, crying, trying to process what had just happened. I didn't leave for another hour. I was too scared. I kept watching the entrance, expecting to see that silver sedan pull in. It never did. I drove the rest of the night without stopping. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just drove. When I finally made it to Portland, I was a wreck. I told a few people what happened, but most of them brushed it off. Said she was probably just messing with me. Said I was stressed from the breakup and saw danger where there wasn't any. Maybe they're right, but I don't think so, because 6 months later, I was scrolling through a true crime subreddit, and I saw a post that made my blood run cold. Someone was asking if anyone had encountered a woman at rest stops along I-40 in Tennessee. A woman with wet hair who smiled at people and followed them. 3 other people commented. Same experience. Same silver sedan. Same smile. One of them said a girl went missing from that area 2 years ago. They found her car abandoned at a rest stop. They never found her. I don't know if it's connected. I don't know what that woman wanted. I don't know if she's still out there. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone, I check my rearview mirror. And I swear, just for a second, I see her, still smiling. I still check my locks 3 times before bed. Every night, without fail. Even though I don't live in that apartment anymore. Even though it's been 4 years. My boyfriend thinks it's quirky, endearing even. He doesn't know the real reason. I've never told him what happened in Austin. Let me back up. I was 19, fresh out of my parents' house, living on my own for the first time. I'd gotten into UT Austin and moved into this small apartment complex on the east side of town. It wasn't fancy, just a 2-story building with maybe 20 units, most of them occupied by students or young people like me. The kind of place where the paint was peeling, the AC barely worked, and you could hear everything through the walls. Your neighbor's TV, their arguments, their footsteps at 2 a.m. But it was mine, and that felt like freedom. I was working part-time at a bookstore and taking classes full-time, and honestly, I loved it. I loved the independence, the late nights studying, the quiet mornings with coffee on my tiny balcony. I felt like an adult for the first time in my life. That feeling didn't last long. It was a Saturday in early September. Hot, humid, the kind of Texas heat that makes your clothes stick to your skin the second you step outside. I'd just gotten back from the grocery store, arms loaded with bags, struggling to carry everything in one trip because I hated making 2. I was halfway up the stairs to my unit, 2nd floor, number 12, when I saw him. He was standing at the bottom of the staircase, looking up at me, mid-40s maybe, average height, a little soft around the middle. He was wearing jeans and a faded red flannel shirt, and he was holding a clipboard. He had this easygoing smile, the kind that's supposed to put you at ease. Didn't. "Hey there," he called up. "You live here." I stopped on the landing, bags cutting into my fingers. "Yeah. Can I help you?" He took a step up, still smiling. "I'm with the leasing office, just doing a quick safety inspection of the units, making sure smoke detectors are working, checking for any maintenance issues. You know how it is." I nodded. That made sense. The building was old. They were always fixing something. "Which unit are you in?" he asked, pen poised over his clipboard. 12, I said, jerking my chin toward my door. He wrote something down. Then he looked up at me, still smiling, and asked, "Do you live alone?" The question hit me like cold water. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. The way his eyes lingered on me just a second too long. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The way the question felt less like a safety concern and more like something else. My stomach twisted. No, I lied quickly. My boyfriend's upstairs. He nodded slowly, wrote something else down, and then looked back up at me. Good. That's good. You can never be too careful, you know? I forced a smile. Yeah, totally. He stepped aside, gesturing for me to pass. I'll be around the complex for a while if you need anything. Have a good day. You too. I walked past him, my heart pounding, and fumbled with my keys at the door. I could feel him watching me. I didn't look back. I just got inside, locked the door behind me, and set the groceries down on the counter. I stood there for a minute trying to shake the feeling. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he was just awkward. Maybe the question was innocent and I was being paranoid because I was a young woman living alone for the first time. But something felt wrong. I pulled out my phone and called the leasing office. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. A woman's voice, chipper and professional. Cedar Ridge Apartments. This is Monica. Hi, I'm a tenant in Building C. I just wanted to confirm. Are you guys doing safety inspections today? There was a pause. Safety inspections? She repeated. Yeah, a guy just came by my unit. Said he was with the leasing office, checking smoke detectors and stuff. Another pause. Longer this time. We're not doing any inspections, she said slowly. Can you describe this person? My chest tightened. Yeah. Mid-40s, jeans, red flannel shirt. Holding a clipboard. I heard her inhale sharply. Stay inside, she said. Lock your door. I'm calling the police. My hands started shaking. Why? Who is he? A man matching that description was banned from this property 2 months ago. He was following one of our tenants. We filed a report, but they never caught him. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. He asked if I lived alone, I whispered. Monica's voice was tight. What did you tell him? I lied. I said my boyfriend was here. Good. Stay inside. I'm sending someone over right now. I hung up and immediately checked the locks. Door, deadbolt, chain, all secure. I went to the window and peeked through the blinds. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars. No sign of the man in the flannel shirt. I sat on the couch, knees pulled to my chest, and waited. The police came 20 minutes later. 2 officers. They took my statement, walked the property, checked the stairwells. They said they'd increase patrols in the area, but without a name or a vehicle, there wasn't much they could do. Keep your doors locked, one of them said. If you see him again, call 911 immediately. I nodded. I didn't tell them how scared I was. I didn't tell them I felt like throwing up. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing noises, footsteps in the hallway, doors opening and closing. I told myself it was just my neighbors. The walls were thin. I was being paranoid. But at 3 a.m., I heard something that made my blood run cold. The sound of my door handle turning. Slow, deliberate, like someone was testing it. I sat up in bed, frozen, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. I stared at the door in the darkness, waiting for it to open, waiting for someone to break through. The handle turned again, jiggled, stopped, then silence. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, staring at the door, my phone clutched in my hand. After what felt like hours, I crept to the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty. I called the police again. They came. They searched the building. They found nothing. But I knew what I'd heard. I stayed with a friend that night, and the next night, and the night after that. A week later, I broke my lease and moved out. I didn't care about the fees. I didn't care about the lost deposit. I just had to get out of that building. I never saw the man again, but I think about him all the time. I think about the way he smiled when he asked if I lived alone. I think about the sound of my door handle turning in the dark. And I wonder, what would have happened if I told him the truth? What would have happened if I really had been alone? I don't know, and I'm grateful I never had to find out. But sometimes, late at night when I'm checking my locks for the 3rd time, I swear I can still hear it. The slow, deliberate turn of a door handle. And I know deep down that he's still out there, waiting for someone who says yes. I don't know if I should be grateful or terrified. That's the thing that keeps me up at night. Most people who go through something like this, they know who the bad guy was. They know who to fear. But me, I still don't know. And that uncertainty is worse than anything else. It's been 3 years, and I still can't shake it. Let me back up. I was 22, living in Chicago, working as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm in Wicker Park. I loved the city, loved the energy, the noise, the fact that you were never really alone. I lived in a studio apartment in Logan Square, and most nights, I'd meet up with friends at this bar called the Violet Hour. Nothing fancy, just drinks, music, good people. That night, the night everything changed, it was a Thursday in late March. Cold. That biting Chicago cold that gets in your bones. I'd met up with a couple of coworkers after a long week, had a few drinks, nothing crazy. By midnight, I was tired and ready to head home. I said my goodbyes and started walking. My apartment was about 15 minutes away on foot, and I'd done the walk 100 times before. I knew the route. I knew the streets. I told myself I was being safe. I wasn't stumbling drunk. I wasn't on my phone. I was alert, or so I thought. I'd been walking for maybe 5 minutes when I first felt it. That prickle on the back of your neck. That instinct that tells you something's wrong. I glanced over my shoulder. There was a guy behind me, maybe 20 yards back. Hoodie pulled up, hands shoved in his pockets, walking at the same pace I was. I told myself it was nothing, just another person walking home. This was Chicago. People walked at night. But then I sped up. So did he. My heart started beating faster. I crossed the street, cutting through a pool of streetlight, and kept walking. I glanced back again. He'd crossed too. Now my chest was tight. My hands were starting to shake. I could hear his footsteps behind me. Steady, deliberate, matching mine step for step. I was on a quieter block now. Residential. Fewer lights. Fewer people. I cursed myself for taking this route. I should have stayed on the main street. I should have called an Uber. I should have done anything other than this. I was about to break into a run when I saw him. Another man. He stepped out from behind a parked car about 10 feet ahead of me. Older guy, maybe 50s, wearing a dark suit and a long wool coat. He had silver hair, neatly combed, and a calm, steady expression. He looked at me, then he looked past me, at the guy in the hoodie. "She's with me," he said. His voice was deep, authoritative. Not loud but firm. I froze. The guy in the hoodie stopped. I could feel him behind me, just standing there, breathing. For a moment, no one moved. Then the hoodie guy turned and walked away. Just like that. I stood there, trembling, my breath coming in short, shaky gasps. I turned to look at the older man, and he smiled. Not a creepy smile. Not an overly friendly smile. Just calm, reassuring. "You should be more careful," he said gently. "It's not safe to walk alone at this hour." I nodded, still too shaken to speak. "Thank you," I managed. Thank you." He nodded once, then turned and walked back to his car. A black sedan parked along the curb. He got in, started the engine, and drove off. I stood there for a minute, trying to process what had just happened. He saved me, right? I walked the rest of the way home in a daze. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door, checked the windows, and collapsed on the couch. My hands were still shaking. I felt sick, but I also felt lucky, grateful. I told myself I'd been saved by a good Samaritan, a kind stranger who saw a woman in danger and stepped in. That's what I told myself. For 2 days, I believed it. Then I saw him again. It was a Saturday afternoon. I'd gone to a cafe a block from my apartment, one of those cozy spots with big windows and good coffee. I was sitting by the window working on my laptop when I glanced up, and there he was, across the street, sitting at a table outside another cafe. Just sitting there, staring at my building. Not at the cafe, at my building. My stomach dropped. I looked down at my laptop, pretended I hadn't seen him, but my heart was racing. I glanced up again a few seconds later. He was still there, still staring. I closed my laptop, grabbed my bag, and left. I didn't look at him as I walked back to my apartment, but I could feel his eyes on me the entire way. I went inside, locked the door, and peeked through the blinds. He was gone. I told myself it was a coincidence. Chicago was a big city, but neighborhoods were small. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he just happened to be at that cafe. But I didn't believe it. Over the next 2 weeks, I saw him 3 more times. Once, walking past my building as I was leaving for work. Once, standing at the end of my block just watching. And once, sitting in his black sedan, parked across the street at 11 p.m., engine off, just waiting. I never saw the guy in the hoodie again, but I saw him. I started to unravel. Couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus at work. Every time I left my apartment, I looked over my shoulder. Every time I came home, I checked to see if his car was there. I called the police. I filed a report. I told them everything. The night he saved me, the times I'd seen him since. They said they'd increase patrols in the area, but without a direct threat, there wasn't much they could do. Has he approached you? The officer asked. No. Has he tried to contact you? No. Then technically, he's not breaking any laws. I wanted to scream. 3 weeks later, I moved. I broke my lease, packed everything I owned, and left Chicago. I went back to my hometown in Ohio, stayed with my parents, and tried to start over. I never saw him again. But here's the thing that haunts me. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he was protecting me that night or if he was the one I should have been running from. I don't know if the guy in the hoodie was a real threat or if he was just some random person walking home. And the older man used the situation to insert himself into my life. I don't know if he saved me or if he was waiting for the right moment to do something worse. And that's what keeps me up at night. Because sometimes late at night when I'm lying in bed in my parents' house in Ohio, I think about that night. I think about the way he stepped out of nowhere. The way the hoodie guy just left without a fight. The way the older man smiled at me. And I wonder, was it staged? Was the guy in the hoodie even real? Or was he part of it? Did the older man pay him? Did he plan it? I'll never know. But I do know this. 2 months after I moved, I got a Facebook message from an account with no profile picture and no name. Just a blank profile. The message said, "I'm glad you're safe." I deleted my account that same day. I still don't know which one of them I should have been afraid of. But I think deep down I know the answer. And that's what terrifies me most. I avoid that highway now. I don't care if it adds 2 hours to my trip. I don't care if it's the fastest route. I will never drive through that part of Wyoming again. It's been 3 years, and I still have nightmares about it. About his face. About the way he looked at me. About what could have happened if I hadn't gotten away. Let me back up. It was late August 2021. I was driving from Colorado to Montana to visit my sister. She just had her first baby, and I'd taken a week off work to help out. The drive was supposed to take about 10 hours, but I'd left late, around 2 p.m., and I was running behind schedule. By the time I hit rural Wyoming, it was dark. Not just dark, empty. The kind of darkness you only get in the middle of nowhere, where there are no streetlights, no towns, no other cars. Just the highway cutting through endless stretches of flat, empty land. I was somewhere between Rawlins and Casper when my gas light came on. I cursed under my breath. I thought I had enough to make it to the next town, but apparently not. I checked my phone. No service. Of course. I kept driving, scanning the horizon for any sign of civilization. For a while, there was nothing, just darkness. Then finally, I saw it. A single light in the distance. As I got closer, I realized it was a gas station. A tiny, run-down place with one pump out front and a small building that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. The sign above the pump was flickering, buzzing like a trapped insect. The light it cast was sickly and yellow. I didn't have a choice. I pulled in. The place looked abandoned. There were no other cars. No signs of life except for the dim light inside the building. I could see a figure moving around behind the counter. Someone was in there. I got out of the car, and immediately, The air felt wrong. It was warm, too warm for late August in Wyoming, and it smelled like oil and something rotten I couldn't place. The silence was oppressive. No wind, no crickets, just the hum of that flickering light above me. I went inside to prepay. The attendant was standing behind the counter. An older man, maybe 60s, with greasy gray hair slicked back and a stained white shirt that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. His eyes were small and dark, sunken into his face, and when he looked at me, he didn't smile. He just stared. "Pump one?" I said, pulling out my card. $40. He didn't respond. He just took my card, swiped it, and handed me the receipt without a word. I walked back outside, filled up my tank, and got back in the car. I just wanted to get out of there. The whole place made my skin crawl. I started the engine and put the car in drive. That's when he came running out. He was waving his arms, yelling, his face twisted in anger. I rolled down my window just a crack. "You didn't pay enough," he shouted. I blinked. "What?" "The pump's broken. You took more than $40 worth. You owe me another 20. My stomach dropped. "No, I looked at the receipt in my hand. It said exactly $40. I prepaid 40. That's what I got." He shook his head violently, his eyes wide and wild. No, the pump's broken. You owe me 20 more. I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not paying you more. I paid for what I got. Here's the receipt." I held it up, but he didn't even look at it. He just stood there, staring at me with this blank, unnerving expression. Then he stepped in front of my car, right in front of it, blocking me. "You're not leaving until you pay," he said. His voice was calm now, too calm. My hands started shaking. "I'm not paying you more. Move." He didn't move. I honked the horn. Once, twice. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, arms at his sides, staring at me through the windshield. I locked the doors. That's when he started walking toward my window. Slowly, deliberately. My heart was hammering now. I put the car in reverse, but he lunged forward and slammed his hand against the glass. "You owe me!" he screamed, his face inches from the window, eyes bulging, spit flying. "You owe me." I reversed hard, tires screeching, swerving to the side. He stumbled but didn't fall. I threw the car into drive and punched the gas, swerving around him and peeling out onto the highway. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing in the middle of the road, perfectly still, lit by the flickering yellow light of the station, just watching me disappear into the darkness. I didn't stop driving for another hour. I didn't even slow down until I hit the next town. When I finally pulled into a well-lit gas station with other people around, I sat in the parking lot and cried. I called my sister, told her what happened. She told me to report it, but to who? I didn't even know the name of the station. I didn't have an address, just somewhere between Rollins and Casper. I tried to put it out of my mind, told myself he was just some crazy old man trying to scam me, that I'd gotten away, that it was over. Then a week later I saw the news. I was scrolling through my phone when the headline stopped me cold. Woman missing after stopping at gas station in rural Wyoming. I clicked on it, my hands trembling. The article said a 34-year-old woman named Rebecca Holt had gone missing while driving through Wyoming. Her car was found abandoned at a small, isolated gas station between Rollins and Casper. The pump receipt in her car showed she'd prepaid for gas. There were no signs of a struggle, no surveillance footage, no witnesses. They never found her. I stared at the article, my stomach twisting into knots. I knew it was the same place. I called the tip line listed in the article and told them everything. I described the station, the attendant, what he'd said to me. The officer on the other end took notes, said they'd look into it, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. "We've searched that area," he said. "There's no gas station matching that description." "What?" "We've combed every road between Rollins and Casper. There's nothing there." I felt cold all over. "But I was there," I said. "I was just there." "Maybe you're misremembering the location," he said gently. "It was dark. Easy to get disoriented. I wasn't misremembering. I hung up and immediately pulled up Google Maps. I retraced my route from that night, zooming in on every mile of highway between Rawlins and Casper. He was right. There was no gas station. Not on the map. Not on Street View. Nothing. But I was there. I pumped gas. I saw him. I have the receipt. I still have the receipt. I keep it in my glove compartment even now. $40. Pump 1. The date and time match. But there's no name on it. No address. Just a faded logo I don't recognize. I've tried to go back. Not to the station, I'd never do that, but to find it. To prove I'm not crazy. But every time I get close to that stretch of highway, something stops me. A feeling. A weight in my chest. A voice in my head that says, don't. I don't know what that place was. I don't know what he wanted. But I know this. Rebecca Holt stopped there. And she never left. I don't know how many others there have been. How many cars have pulled off that highway, seen that flickering light, and never made it back. But I know I almost became one of them. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone on an empty road, I see it in the distance. That single, flickering light. And I keep driving. I moved after that night. I didn't even think about it. I didn't hesitate. I broke my lease, packed my things, and left. I've never gone back. People ask me why I'm so paranoid now. Why I won't live on the ground floor. Why I have 3 locks on my door. Why I sleep with a baseball bat next to my bed. I don't tell them, because if I tell them, I have to relive it. And reliving it means admitting how close I came to opening that door. Let me back up. I was 24, living alone for the first time in a ground floor apartment in Pittsburgh. It was a small 1-bedroom in Shadyside, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I worked as a paralegal at a law firm downtown, and most nights, I came home exhausted, ate something quick, and collapsed into bed. That night, February 14th, 2020, it was freezing. The kind of cold that seeps through the windows no matter how high you turn the heat. I remember because I'd gone to bed with 2 blankets and still felt the chill in the air. I fell asleep around midnight. 3 a.m. I woke up to knocking. First, I thought I was dreaming. The sound was faint, muffled, like it was coming from far away. But then I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, steady, deliberate. I sat up in bed, my heart already starting to race. I glanced at my phone. 3:07 a.m. Who the hell knocks on someone's door at 3 a.m.? I stayed still, listening. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it was a neighbor's door. Maybe, knock, knock, knock. No, it was my door. I got out of bed, my legs shaky, and walked slowly toward the front door. The apartment was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight outside filtering through the blinds. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and fast. I looked through the peephole. A man was standing there. My stomach dropped. He was clean-cut, maybe early 30s, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. His hair was neatly combed. He looked normal, not threatening, not like someone I should be afraid of. But it was 3 a.m., and he was at my door. He knocked again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry to bother you." His voice was calm, polite. "My car broke down. Can I use your phone?" I didn't respond. My mind was racing. Why would he come to my apartment? There was a gas station 2 blocks away. Why not go there? "Please," he said. "I just need to make a call. I won't take long." I leaned closer to the peephole, my hands trembling. He was holding a phone. I could see it in his hand. If he had a phone, why did he need mine? "There's a gas station 2 blocks down," I said, my voice shaking. "They're open 24 hours. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring straight ahead, straight at the peephole, like he knew I was watching. "I'd really appreciate your help," he said. His voice was still calm, too calm. "I can't help you," I said. "Please leave." He didn't leave. He just stood there, staring. Then slowly he smiled. "I know you're alone," he said. My blood turned to ice. I stumbled back from the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and dialed 911. My hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. 911. What's your emergency? There's a man at my door, I whispered. He won't leave. He said he knows I'm alone. What's your address? I gave it to her, my voice trembling. Stay on the line. Officers are on the way. I crept back to the peephole, the phone pressed to my ear. He was still there, still smiling, still staring. I felt like I was going to throw up. He's still there, I whispered to the dispatcher. He's just standing there. Don't open the door, she said. Stay inside. Officers are 2 minutes away. Those 2 minutes felt like hours. I stood there, frozen, watching him through the peephole. He didn't move, didn't knock again. He just stood there, smiling like he had all the time in the world. Then, finally, I heard sirens in the distance. And just like that, he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear into the darkness, his footsteps crunching in the snow. The police arrived a minute later. I let them in, still shaking, and told them everything. They searched the street, the parking lot, the surrounding area. We didn't see anyone, one of the officers said. Are you sure he went this way? Yes. I watched him leave. They walked around the building, shining their flashlights into the snow. Then one of them came back, his expression uneasy. Ma'am, there are footprints leading to your door, he said. But they only go one way. I blinked. What? There are no footprints leading away, just the ones coming to your door. I felt cold all over. That's not possible. I saw him leave. The officer shook his head. I'm telling you what I see. There are no tracks leading away from your door. They checked for a broken-down car. There was none. They checked nearby streets. Nothing. We'll file a report, the officer said. But without a description of a vehicle or a last name, there's not much we can do. Keep your doors locked. If he comes back, call us immediately. They left. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light on, staring at the door, waiting for him to come back. He didn't. But the next morning, when I finally worked up the courage to look outside, I saw it. A handprint. On my window. A single, perfect handprint, pressed against the glass from the outside. I called the police again. They came back, took photos, dusted for prints. But they didn't find a match in the system. Probably just a prank, one of them said. It wasn't a prank. I stayed with friends for a week. I was too scared to be alone in that apartment. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. That smile. Those words. I know you're alone. When I finally went back to pack my things, I moved as fast as I could. I didn't care about the lease. I didn't care about losing my deposit. I just had to get out. I moved to a third-floor apartment across town. I installed 3 locks. I bought a security system. I got a dog. But it didn't matter, because 2 months later I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name and new address written in neat, careful handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper. It said, I'm glad you're safe. I called the police. They said there was nothing they could do. No threat. No crime. But I knew. He'd found me. I moved again. And again. I don't stay in one place for more than a year now. I don't tell people where I live. I don't post on social media. I don't exist online. Because he's still out there. And I don't know what he wants. I don't know why he chose me. I don't know if he's watching me right now. But I do know this. He knew I was alone. And I think he still does. I don't pick up hitchhikers anymore. I don't care how hot it is outside. I don't care if someone looks stranded or desperate. I don't care if they seem harmless. Because harmless doesn't mean safe. It's been 4 years, and I still think about him every time I drive alone. Every time I see someone on the side of the road. Every time I get in my car and see the passenger seat. I got lucky that day. I know I did. But I still don't know what he was planning to do with that knife. Let me back up. I was 25, living in Seattle, and I'd taken a week off work to drive through Montana. I needed to clear my head. I'd just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and I was one of those people who thought a solo road trip would help me find myself, or whatever. It was July, the middle of summer. Hot, sunny, beautiful. The kind of weather that makes you roll the windows down and blast music and feel like everything's going to be okay. I was on Highway 200, somewhere between Missoula and Great Falls, cruising through open fields and mountains, feeling good for the first time in months. That's when I saw him. A guy standing on the side of the road, thumb out, backpack at his feet. He looked normal, maybe 30, give or take. Jeans, flannel shirt, hiking boots, clean shaven. He wasn't holding a sign or looking desperate, just standing there, calm, waiting. I should have kept driving, but I didn't. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe it was the sunshine. Maybe it was the fact that I was in a good mood and feeling optimistic about humanity. Maybe I just didn't want to be alone with my thoughts anymore. I pulled over. He jogged up to the car, smiling, and leaned down to the passenger window. "Hey, thanks for stopping. You headed toward Great Falls?" "Yeah," I said. "How far are you going?" "Just to the next town. Maybe 20 miles. I hesitated, just for a second, but he seemed fine, polite, normal. "Sure," I said. "Hop in." He tossed his backpack in the back seat and climbed into the passenger seat. He smelled like sunscreen and sweat, the kind of smell you'd expect from someone who'd been hiking. "Thanks so much," he said, buckling his seatbelt. "I've been out here for like an hour. You're a lifesaver." I smiled and pulled back onto the highway. "No problem. What are you doing out here?" "Hiking, camping, just exploring, you know? Cool. I'm doing kind of the same thing. Just driving. Needed to get away for a bit." "I get that." We made small talk for a few miles. He was polite, quiet. He asked where I was from, what I did for work, how long I'd been on the road. Normal questions. I didn't think anything of it. But then the questions started to change. "So where are you headed after Great Falls?" he asked. "Not sure yet. Maybe Glacier. Maybe just keep driving." He nodded. "You traveling alone?" I hesitated. "Yeah." "That's brave," he said. "You live alone too?" The question made my stomach twist. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged. "Just curious. Most people don't travel alone. Especially women." I forced a laugh. "I like my space. Is anyone expecting you? Like, do people know where you are?" Now my chest was tight. I glanced at him. He was staring straight ahead, his face blank. "My boyfriend's meeting me in a couple days," I lied. "We're doing the second half of the trip together." He didn't respond. He just went quiet. And that's when I felt it. His eyes on me. I glanced over, just for a second, and he was staring at me, not blinking, his face completely flat. No expression, just staring. My hands tightened on the wheel. "You okay?" He didn't answer. I looked at the road, my heart starting to pound. I could still feel him staring. I didn't look at him again. I just kept driving, my palms sweating, my mind racing. Something was wrong. I saw a sign for a gas station. 2 miles. "I need to stop for gas," I said, my voice shaky. He didn't respond. I pulled into the gas station, my hands trembling. He got out of the car with me. I didn't ask him to. He just did. I walked quickly toward the building, glancing back. He was standing by the car, watching me. I went inside and walked straight to the counter. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with a bored expression, looked up from her phone. "Can I help you?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I picked up a hitchhiker. I don't feel safe. Can you call the police?" Her expression changed immediately. "Are you okay? Is he threatening you?" "No, but just please. Call them." She nodded and picked up the phone. I stood there, my heart hammering, watching through the window. He was still by the car, just standing there, staring at the building. "They're on the way," the clerk said. "Stay inside." I nodded, wrapping my arms around myself. 5 minutes later, I heard the sirens. 2 police cars pulled into the lot. I walked outside with one of the officers, my legs shaking. But when I got to my car, he was gone. Just gone. "Where'd he go?" the officer asked. "I don't know. He was just here." They searched the area, the gas station, The woods behind the lot. Nothing. Did he take anything? The officer asked. I checked my car. My wallet was gone. He'd taken it from the center console. But that's not what made my blood run cold. On the passenger seat, right where he'd been sitting, was a knife. A hunting knife. Serrated blade. About 6 inches long. He'd left it there. The officer bagged it as evidence. They took my statement. They said they'd look for him, but without a name or a photo, there wasn't much they could do. You're lucky, one of them said. Whatever he was planning, you stopped it. I nodded, but I didn't feel lucky, because I kept thinking about the knife. Why did he leave it there? Was it a threat? A warning? A message? Or was it something worse? I drove to the nearest hotel and checked in. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the bed, staring at the door, replaying everything in my head. The questions, the staring, the knife. What would have happened if I hadn't stopped for gas? What would have happened if I'd kept driving, alone, in the middle of nowhere with him sitting right next to me? I don't know, and I'm grateful I never found out. But here's the thing that still haunts me. 2 months later, I saw a news story. A woman's body was found off Highway 200 in Montana. She'd been stabbed. They said she'd picked up a hitchhiker. They never caught him. I don't know if it was the same guy. I don't know if the knife he left in my car was the same one he used on her. But I think about it. I think about it all the time. I think about how close I came. How one decision, one moment of kindness, of naivety, of stupidity, almost cost me my life. I don't pick up hitchhikers anymore. And if you're reading this, if you're listening to this, please, don't pick them up either. Because you don't know who they are. And by the time you find out, it might be too late. I changed everything after this. My route, my schedule, my entire life. People ask me why I dropped out of grad school, why I moved back home, why I'm so jumpy, so paranoid, always looking over my shoulder. I don't tell them, because if I tell them, I have to remember. And remembering means admitting how helpless I felt, how violated, how trapped. It's been 3 years, and I still can't shake the feeling that he's out there somewhere. Watching. Let me back up. I was 24, a grad student at the University of Washington in Seattle, studying English literature. I'd moved there 2 years earlier for the program, and I loved it. The city, the campus, the coffee culture. I had a routine, a comfortable, predictable routine. Every morning at 7 a.m., I went to the same cafe, a small place called the Daily Grind on 45th Street. I'd order a vanilla latte, sit at the same table by the window, and read for about 30 minutes. Then I'd walk to campus, the same route every day, down 45th, past the bookstore, through the park, and onto campus. I liked routine. It made me feel grounded, safe. That was my first mistake. It was a Monday in October. Rainy, gray, typical Seattle morning. I was sitting at my usual table, sipping my coffee, reading a book for my seminar, when I heard the chair across from me scrape against the floor. I looked up. A man was sitting down, not at the table next to me, at my table. I blinked, confused. Can I help you? He smiled, friendly, warm. He was maybe in his late 30s, clean-shaven, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. He had brown hair, neatly combed, and an easygoing demeanor that made him seem harmless. Sorry, he said. I just noticed you're always here at 7. I forced a polite laugh. Yeah, I guess I like routine. He nodded, still smiling. I know. Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. You take the same path to campus every day, he continued. Down 45th, past the bookstore, through the park. My chest tightened. I set my coffee down slowly. How do you know that? He tilted his head, like he didn't understand why I was asking. I've been watching. The words hung in the air. I stared at him, my heart starting to pound. You've been watching me? Yeah. He said it so casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world, like he thought I'd be flattered. I grabbed my bag and stood up. That's really creepy. Don't do that. Wait. I didn't let him finish. I walked out of the cafe, my hands shaking, and headed toward campus. But I didn't take my usual route. I turned left instead of right, cutting through a different neighborhood, my pulse racing. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe he was just awkward. Maybe he was trying to be friendly and didn't realize how creepy he sounded. But then I saw him, sitting on a bench, on the street I'd just turned onto, just sitting there, smiling. My blood ran cold. I stopped walking. He waved. I turned and walked the other way, my heart hammering in my chest. I pulled out my phone and called campus security. "This is going to sound crazy," I said, my voice shaking. "But there's a man who's been following me. He said he's been watching me. I just saw him on a bench, and I don't know what to do." "Where are you now?" the operator asked. I told her, "Stay in a public area. We'll send someone." I ducked into a coffee shop and waited. A security officer showed up 10 minutes later. I explained everything. The man at the cafe, the bench, the fact that he knew my routine. The officer took notes. "Did he threaten you?" "No, but he said he's been watching me." "Did he follow you after you left the cafe?" "I don't know. I saw him on a bench, but I don't know if he followed me or if he was already there." The officer nodded. "We'll increase patrols in the area, but without a direct threat or physical contact, there's not much we can do. If you see him again, call us immediately." That was it. I went to class, but I couldn't focus. I kept looking over my shoulder, scanning the faces in the hallways, the quad, the library. I didn't see him that day, but I saw him the next day. I was walking to the library, taking a completely different route than usual, when I saw him standing across the street, just standing there, staring at me. I froze. He smiled and waved. I turned and walked the other way, my hands trembling. I called campus security again. They sent someone. By the time the officer arrived, he was gone. "Are you sure it's the same person?" the officer asked. "Yes, I'm sure. We'll keep an eye out." But again, without a direct threat. I knew what he was going to say. There was nothing they could do. I saw him again on Wednesday. This time, he was sitting in the student union, just sitting there reading a newspaper like he belonged there. When he saw me, he smiled. I left immediately and called security. Again, by the time they arrived, he was gone. On Thursday, he was outside the building where I had my seminar, leaning against a tree, watching. On Friday, he was at the bus stop I used to get home. I stopped going to class. I stopped leaving my apartment. I was terrified. I reported it to the police. They took a statement, but they said the same thing campus security had said. Without a direct threat, there was nothing they could do. "He hasn't touched you. He hasn't verbally threatened you. Technically, he's not breaking any laws. But he's stalking me," I said, my voice breaking. "I understand this is frightening," the officer said, "but unless he makes a direct threat or physically harms you, we can't arrest him for being in public spaces." I felt helpless, trapped. That weekend, I made a decision. I dropped out of grad school. I packed my things, broke my lease, and moved back to my parents' house in Oregon. I didn't tell anyone why. I just left. My professors were confused. My friends were worried. But I couldn't explain. I couldn't tell them that I was so scared I couldn't function, that I felt like I was being hunted. For a while, I felt safe. I was 200 miles away. He didn't know where I lived. He couldn't find me. But then, 3 months later, I got a message on Instagram from an account with no profile picture, no posts, no followers. The message said, "I miss seeing you every morning." I deleted my account that day. I deleted all my social media. I changed my phone number. I became a ghost. But I still think about him. I think about the way he smiled. The way he said he'd been watching me like it was a compliment. The way he always seemed to know where I'd be. And I wonder if he's still out there. If he's found someone else to watch. If he's sitting in a cafe right now, smiling at someone, saying, "You're always here at 7. I hope not. But I know how easy it is. How invisible someone can be when they're just watching. I still look over my shoulder. I still change my routes. I still check to see if anyone's following me. Because I learned something that fall in Seattle. Routine makes you predictable. and predictable makes you a target. So if you're reading this, if you have a routine, if you take the same path every day, change it, because you never know who's watching. And 11. I still don't go to public restrooms alone. My friends think it's weird. My boyfriend thinks I'm being paranoid. But they weren't there. They didn't see her face. They didn't feel what I felt. It's been 2 years, and I still can't shake it. Let me back up. I was 23, living in Phoenix, working as a manager at a clothing store in Scottsdale. That day, a Saturday in March, I'd met up with 2 of my friends, Lisa and Jenna, to spend the afternoon at the mall. Nothing unusual. We did it all the time. Shopping, coffee, catching up. It was crowded that day. Spring break season. Families everywhere. Teenagers. Couples. The food court was packed, the stores buzzing with people. We'd been there for maybe 2 hours when I told my friends I needed to use the bathroom. "We'll wait here," Lisa said, gesturing to a bench outside Forever 21. "Be right back," I said. I walked down the corridor toward the restrooms, weaving through the crowd. The women's bathroom was around the corner, tucked away in a quieter section of the mall. When I pushed through the door, it was empty. I went into a stall, did my business, and came out to wash my hands. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that harsh, sterile glow. The air smelled like cheap soap and something faintly sour. I was standing at the sink, washing my hands, when the door opened. A woman walked in. I glanced at her in the mirror. She was maybe in her 40s, average height, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a gray hoodie. Nothing about her stood out. She looked normal, but she didn't go into a stall. She just stood there, right behind me, staring at me in the mirror. I felt a chill run down my spine. I kept washing my hands, trying to ignore her, but I could feel her eyes on me, unblinking, intense. I turned off the water and grabbed a paper towel, forcing an awkward smile. "Busy day, huh?" She didn't respond. She just kept staring. I threw the paper towel in the trash and moved toward the door. That's when she stepped in front of it, blocking my way. My heart started pounding. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaking. She didn't move. She just stood there, breathing heavy, her eyes locked on mine, not blinking, not speaking, just staring. I could hear the sound of her breath, slow, deliberate, in and out. "I need to leave," I said louder now. "Move." She didn't move. I felt my pulse spike. My hands started trembling. The bathroom suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, the sound grating against my skull. I made a decision. I pushed past her. She didn't try to stop me, but as I shoved by, I felt her arm brush against mine. Cold. Too cold for the warm, stuffy bathroom. I bolted out the door, my heart hammering, and didn't stop until I reached my friends. "What's wrong?" Jenna asked, standing up immediately. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "There was a woman in the bathroom," I said, my voice shaking. "She blocked the door. She wouldn't let me leave." "What?" Lisa's eyes widened. "Are you okay? Did she hurt you?" "No, she just stood there, staring at me." "We need to tell security," Jenna said. We found a security guard and explained what happened. He radioed for backup and 2 officers went to check the bathroom. They came back a few minutes later. "It's empty," one of them said. "There's no one in there." "But she was just there," I said. "She was right there." "We checked every stall," he said. "No one." I felt cold all over. "That's impossible." The security guard took my description of her. Dark hair, gray hoodie, jeans, and said they'd review the cameras. But without any proof of a crime, there wasn't much they could do. "If you see her again, let us know," he said. I nodded, but I felt sick. How could she just disappear? My friends and I left the mall shortly after. I didn't feel like shopping anymore. I just wanted to go home. When I got home that evening, I went to put my phone in my purse. That's when I saw it. Piece of paper, folded neatly, tucked inside the front pocket of my purse. My hands started shaking as I pulled it out. I unfolded it slowly, my heart pounding. It was a note, handwritten in neat, careful script. It said, "You smell like vanilla." I dropped it. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I stared at the note on the floor, my mind racing. When did she put it there? How did she get close enough to put it in my purse? I'd had my purse with me the entire time. I never set it down. It was on my shoulder when I was in the bathroom, when I was washing my hands, when she was standing behind me. How close did she get? I called Lisa, my voice shaking, and told her about the note. She told me to call the police. I did. They came to my apartment, took the note as evidence, and said they'd follow up. But they were honest with me. Without a name, a face, or any direct threat, "There's not much we can do," the officer said. "But we'll keep an eye out. If she contacts you again, call us immediately." I nodded, but I didn't feel safe, because she'd been close enough to put that note in my purse. Close enough to smell me. Close enough to touch me. And I never even noticed. For weeks, I was paranoid. I checked my purse constantly. I avoided that mall. I didn't go to public restrooms alone. But nothing else happened. No more notes. No more sightings. No more encounters. I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe she was just some weirdo who got off on scaring people. Maybe I'd never see her again. But then, 6 months later, I was at a different mall. This time in Tempe. I was with my boyfriend, just browsing. When I saw her, she was standing across the food court, staring at me. Same dark hair, same gray hoodie, same dead, unblinking stare. My blood ran cold. "That's her?" I whispered, grabbing my boyfriend's arm. "Who?" "The woman from the bathroom." He looked where I was pointing, but by the time he turned his head, she was gone. "I don't see anyone," he said. I scanned the crowd, my heart pounding, but she'd disappeared, just like before. We left immediately. I filed another police report, but again, there was nothing they could do. That was 2 years ago. I haven't seen her since, but I know she's still out there, because last month I got a package in the mail. No return address, just my name and address, handwritten in that same neat script. Inside was a small bottle of vanilla perfume, and a note. It said, "I still remember." I moved shortly after that. I didn't tell anyone my new address. I don't use social media anymore. I don't go to public places alone. But sometimes when I'm out, I feel it. That prickle on the back of my neck. That feeling of being watched. And I know she's there, somewhere in the crowd. Still staring. Still remembering. Still waiting. I still feel sick when I think about how close I came. How close I came to being another statistic. Another missing person poster. Another unsolved case that people forget about after a few weeks. I think about it every time I get in my car. Every time I drive alone. Every time I see a truck in my rearview mirror. It's been 2 years, and I still can't shake it. Let me back up. I was 26, living in Phoenix, working as a teacher at an elementary school. That summer, July 2022, I'd planned a trip to visit my grandparents in Albuquerque. It was supposed to be a relaxing week. Just me, the open road, and some quality time with family. I left Phoenix around 3 p.m., figuring I'd get to Albuquerque by 9 or 10. The drive was supposed to be easy. Straight shot on I-40 through New Mexico. I'd done it before. No big deal. Everything was fine until I hit that empty stretch of highway about an hour outside of Grants. It was around 7 p.m. The sun was starting to set, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. Beautiful but isolating. I hadn't seen another car in 20 minutes. Just endless road, dust, and sagebrush. That's when I heard it. A loud pop, followed by the violent thumping of rubber on asphalt. My tire had blown. I felt the car pull hard to the right, and I gripped the wheel, fighting to keep control. I managed to pull onto the shoulder without flipping, my heart hammering in my chest. I sat there for a second, trying to catch my breath. Then I got out to assess the damage. The front passenger tire was shredded, completely destroyed. I pulled out my phone. No service. Of course. I looked around. Nothing. No buildings. No cars. No signs of life. Just me, the highway, and the dying light. I popped the trunk and stared at the spare tire and the jack, trying to remember how to change a tire. My dad had shown me once years ago, but I'd never actually done it myself. I was fumbling with the jack, my hands already shaking, when I heard it, the rumble of an engine. I looked up. A truck was pulling over behind me. A big, dark blue pickup with a dented bumper and a toolbox in the bed. A man got out. He was middle-aged, maybe late 40s, with a scruffy beard and a baseball cap. He wore jeans and a faded flannel shirt. He smiled as he walked toward me. "You all right?" he called out. I nodded, relief flooding through me. "Yeah, just blew a tire." "I can see that." He walked closer, hands in his pockets, still smiling. "You need help?" Yeah. If you don't mind. I've never actually changed one before." "No problem. I got you." He grabbed the jack from my hands and got to work. He moved fast, like he'd done this 100 times. As he worked, he talked. "Dangerous out here at night," he said, grunting as he loosened the lug nuts. "People don't realize how isolated this stretch is. You break down, you're stuck. No service. No help." I nodded. "Yeah. I'm really lucky you came by." He glanced up at me, still smiling. "You are." Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling down. He was helping me. I was being paranoid. He kept talking as he worked. "People go missing out here, every year. Tourists, mostly. They break down. Someone stops to help, and..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "Never seen again." I laughed nervously. "That's terrifying." "It is." He tightened the last lug nut and stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "But you're lucky. You got me." There it was again. That feeling. He walked back to his truck and tossed the jack in the bed. I thanked him, my voice shaky, and started to get in my car. "Hey!" he called out. I turned. He was standing by his truck, arms crossed, still smiling. "You should follow me to the next town. Make sure you're safe." My chest tightened. "Oh no, I'm good. Thank you, though." "You sure? It's gonna be dark soon." "Long way to Grant's." "I'm sure. I really appreciate your help." I got in my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. My hands were trembling. He didn't get in his truck. He just stood there, staring at me. I put the car in drive and pulled back onto the highway, my heart pounding. I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, watching me. Then, slowly, he got in his truck and followed. At first, I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe he was going the same way. Maybe he just wanted to make sure I made it to the next town. But then he turned on his high beams. Blinding white light flooded my rearview mirror. I squinted, my heart racing. I sped up. He sped up. I changed lanes. He changed lanes. He stayed right behind me. Close. Too close. I started crying. Couldn't help it. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. I kept checking the mirror, and he was always there, his high beams burning into my eyes. I thought about pulling over. I thought about calling 911, but I still didn't have service. So I just drove, faster and faster, praying I'd see lights, praying I'd see people. For 30 miles, he followed me. 30 miles of pure, suffocating terror. Then finally I saw it. The glow of a town in the distance. Grants, lights, gas stations, people. I took the exit, my tires screeching, and pulled into the first gas station I saw. I parked under the brightest light, my chest heaving, tears streaming down my face. I looked in the mirror. He was gone. He'd turned off before the exit. Just disappeared. I sat there, shaking, sobbing, trying to process what had just happened. A woman knocked on my window. She worked at the gas station, said I looked upset, asked if I was okay. I wasn't, but I told her what happened. She told me to call the police. I did. 2 officers showed up 20 minutes later. I told them everything. Described the man, the truck, the route. One of the officers exchanged a look with the other. "What?" I asked. "We've had reports," he said slowly. "A man in a truck matching that description. He offers to help women with car trouble. then follows them. My stomach dropped. Has he hurt anyone? The officer hesitated. There's one woman who didn't make it home. Her car was found abandoned about 40 miles from here. No sign of her. No sign of a struggle. Just gone. I felt like I was going to be sick. We've been looking for him, the officer continued, but we don't have a plate number. No name, just descriptions. They took my statement, told me they'd increase patrols, told me to drive safe. That was it. I didn't visit my grandparents that summer. I turned around and drove straight back to Phoenix. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be on that highway. I still think about him, about the way he smiled, the way he talked about people going missing like it was nothing, like it was just a fact of life. And I think about the woman who didn't make it home. Was he the one who helped her too? I'll never know. But I do know this. If I hadn't driven away, if I'd followed him like he wanted, if I trusted him just a little bit more, I wouldn't be here, and no one would know what happened to me. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone, I see a truck in my rearview mirror. And for a second, just a second, I think it's him, waiting for the next person who needs help.